I considered doing this episode in just my underpants, but then I thought that would probably get my video demonetized. Also, that's just not decent. No one needs to see that. Hi, I'm Andre and I'm a black nerd with a review for you, Better Reviews. Got requests from you to go see Captain Underpants, the first epic movie, and also Tom Cruise's The Mummy, but I'll get to that in a future video. 5 good things about bad movies. But this will be a normal review about Captain Underpants because there's some stuff that I have to say about this movie that quite surprised me, and I'm gonna tell you all about it. If you'd like to hear me talk about movies, I do it pretty regularly on this channel, so make sure you are subscribed and also click that bell to be notified of future videos I make. Be part of the squad by the bell. So Captain Underpants is a movie based on a popular series of children's novels about Captain Underpants, and also about these two boys, George and Harold. George and Harold are two best friends in elementary school that love to pull pranks and tell jokes, and this always angers their principal, Principal Krupp. So one day when Principal Krupp decides he wants to separate George and Harold from taking classes together, they have the crazy idea to try to hypnotize Principal Krupp using a hypno ring that they found inside of a cereal box. But it actually works. They're actually able to hypnotize him, and they decide to make him believe that he is Captain Underpants, a superhero character that they created from the comics and stories that they make together. Captain Underpants is fun. What's cool about it is, even though I didn't know that much about the original books, I still was able to enjoy the movie, and there were parts of the movie where I could tell I don't know that much about Captain Underpants, but I'm pretty sure that's kind of a reference to what happens in the book. The movie is visually fun. It has a very simple animation style, which actually works in its favor because when there's certain characters or certain moments that need to be highlighted, the rest of the movie is kind of in the background so you can really put focus on the specific character or the specific thing that's going on. And I read that they used a different animation studio up in Canada to make this movie, probably a little bit on the cheap, but what it does is it makes it look a little bit different than the other DreamWorks animation movies that are out there. Yes, this is a DreamWorks movie. The same people that gave you The Boss Baby gave you this movie, and you can look at those two movies side by side, and they look a little bit different animated style. As a matter of fact, Captain Underpants originally had the release date of The Boss Baby, but got pushed so that Alec Baldwin talking baby could come out beforehand. That's messed up, man. Boss Bully's more like it. But what's cool about Captain Underpants is, in addition to it having a cool animation style, it also has a variety of animation within the movie. You get the 3D animation, of course, but you also get some 2D animated sequences, some hand-drawn sequences, paper cutout type sequences, some sequences that are 2D animated, but they look like the drawings that George and Harold do in their comic books. There's even a sock puppet sequence where all the characters are played by puppets or sock puppets. So that was pretty unique. Yeah, I was not expecting that. And one of the animated bits that happens in this movie, if you are familiar with a certain thing that happens in the Captain Underpants books, when the action sequences take place in those books, then you're gonna obviously get this joke when it pops up in the movie. In addition to the different animation styles, this movie also breaks the fourth wall a number of times. There's a literal timeout, like it's Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell. There's a number of times where George and Harold reference that they are in a movie, and they even sing along to the DreamWorks opening logo theme. So I love those little fourth wall breaking moments, kind of Animaniacs style or Ninja Turtles 80s style of letting you know, hey, we know we're in a cartoon. And that's what's really interesting about the humor with this movie. When you see something like Captain Underpants like I did, I was just expecting a bunch of potty humor. And yes, you do get a lot of potty humor and lowbrow jokes and jokes obviously aimed at kids by saying things like fart and poopy pants and stuff like that. Yeah, that's all in there. But then they'll have jokes that are really kind of smart, are very culturally relevant, or are just very interesting. There's a lot of jokes in here or quick lines in here you go, wow, that's actually pretty funny, or that's actually a little bit smarter than I would have expected from a movie called Captain Underpants. And then of course they'll say something like fart and everyone's happy again. I will say though that at times they do rely a little bit too much on the poopy jokes or the underpants style jokes, and there's this whole musical sequence that's like weird, but other than that, it's actually kind of a smart, fun film. The voice acting is okay in it. It's all celebrity voices mostly. What's interesting to me is that Kristen Shaw is a voice in this, and Kristen Shaw has a very, very distinct voice. If you ever heard her on Bob's Burgers or Gravity Falls, you know her voice. She's in this, and I didn't even know that it was her until they showed the end credits. Also, Jordan Peele does a really good job. I couldn't tell what his voice was until they showed his name at the end. Big thing about Captain Underpants is it reminded me a lot, honestly, of how I was as a kid. I used to buy 3-ring binders and put white paper inside of them, or I would buy spiral notebooks and I would draw my own comics or write my own stories all the time when I was a kid. I used to always try to create new characters, or I'd make up stories about some of the characters I really liked. I used to have comics I used to draw about Nintendo characters and Gremlins and all that kind of stuff. I used to write my own plays and stories so I could get the vibe of what George and Harold were like, because I used to be like that. Making up songs or coming up with ideas for adventures from cartoons I love, like He-Man and Smurfs and Ninja Turtles and Tiny Toon Adventures. I actually wrote a story that I thought would be a cool episode of Tiny Toon Adventures, and then found out that these freaking kids did one, and then they made a whole episode about it, Bustin' Babs Go Hawaiian. That could have been me. I wrote some Tiny Toon stories when I was a kid. Why not submit to Steven Spielberg when I had the chance? Maybe there's still time. But yes, the movie really taps into what it was like as a kid when you had this whole fantasy world that you would create for yourself. There's a lot of times when George and Harold are doing things in the movie that are clearly what's happening in their brain versus what's really happening. So it's a nice blend of fantasy and reality. Kind of taps into your childhood in that, whether you are a child now who's going through that phase, or if you're an adult who remembers being in that phase, or in some cases if you're an adult who's still in that phase. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes the fantasy world is so much better than the real one. Almost all the times the fantasy world is so much better than the real one. Let's all go to Andre Land. And in a very subtle way, the movie also reminds us of how important it is to have art and music programs, both growing up in school and in real life, how art and music are very, very important in creating ourselves, our lives, our creativity, our ways of being. Don't close those programs. It's a short, fun film. It paces pretty well. The third act kind of drags a little bit, but that's pretty much the main complaint I have about this. For a movie that I didn't really have high expectations for, I actually came out kind of enjoying it. And especially when I saw the movie I saw after it, I think it made me appreciate Captain Underpants even more. So you have Tom Cruise to thank for me liking Captain Underpants even more than I thought I would. And just as the movie ends, and I think I've thought of every good thing I can say about this movie, the movie ends with a theme song sung by Weird Al Yankovic. Movie of the year. Yeah, man, I think Captain Underpants is a really good movie. It's apparently already made over its budget because it was a low budget DreamWorks movie, but it's not doing a crazy amount of money because it came out the same weekend as this other superhero movie that a lot of people were apparently talking about. Some indie film that you probably never heard of, but I hear it's doing well. But I'm pretty sure once it goes on DVD, once it gets on Netflix or Hulu, or once it gets more available digitally, I think this is gonna be one of those movies that people are gonna pick up and watch. And I think it's a great movie for kids, I think it's a great movie for families, and I think it's a great movie for animation fans. It's just kind of neat when you're watching a movie and then all of a sudden there's 2D animation, or all of a sudden there's sock puppets. You don't get to say that very often. So I can't believe that I'm saying this. I recommend Captain Underpants, the first epic movie. So let me know if this review has convinced you to go see Captain Underpants, or if you've already seen it, let me know what you think about it. Did you like it as much as I did, or did you have more problems with it? Let me know. Discuss in the comments and things. And as always, if there's ever any movie that you would like to see me review on this channel, whether it's past or present, always feel free to leave it as a suggestion. Help fuel the things I watch. I always appreciate it. And I will also appreciate if you click that subscribe button and make sure you are subscribed to my channel so you can check out the new videos that I make. So click subscribe, ring that bell to get notified, and I'll see you on the other side. I love you like a play cousin. I'm Audi 5000. Tra-la-la!